Well, hey there, and how are you today? My name is Carla. I'm an adult doll collector, and you are in my hangout. And today we are looking at the closet that you're going to build. The first one that you saw was my prototype, which honestly came out really well. We're going to build this. I will be including the cut list and the supply list, and I will definitely try to remember to have links for some of the things that might be a little harder to find. I do hope you enjoy making it. It's like I said, it's really easy. If you follow the cut list, it will come together just like a puzzle, just bump bump bump, and you won't even have to worry about it. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, and you'll have yourself a nice closet. So on that, let's get crafting. Okay, before we get started building this, we will be building this closet in white. Okay, everything will be white. However, not everyone wants to do everything in white, and I would encourage those of you who want to have a little bit of fun with this, which I consider doing, by the way. When you're doing your closet, you can also add a pretty print background on this back here, which would also make it look very nice. And if you want to, you can still keep the front white or paint it another color. You can also go with a wood kind of color. What I'm saying is, even though I'm going with white, I encourage you to just have some fun with it, because this is kind of actually pretty easy. And I think this project is an excellent opportunity for you to go with colors and patterns that you might really like to have in your doll universe. So please have fun with this. Like I said, though mine will be white, that doesn't mean other ones will be. I am planning on making another one with some of those patterns because they look fun, and I think it'd be beautiful, and I think it would give it a nice, kind of old-fashioned French country kind of look, or at least that's what I'm going for. But yes, have fun with it. That's what I really want you to do. Have fun. All right, let's start with the foam board, which is the biggest part of this project. I used about 2 sheets. You might be able to get by with 1.5 sheets. And some of this, I mean, if you just have extra foam board on hand, I encourage you to use it. It's like a whole bunch of these pieces. Right. If you've got enough extra pieces to cut that, you go for it. So, but this is the basic cut list. So foam board, 2 sheets. You're going to cut 2 at 14 by 20 inches. I do intend to, hopefully by the time I make this video, I'll also have this with the centimeters. You're going to want 8 cut at 2 by 14. And then you're going to want 2 cut at 4.5 by 2, 4 at 4 3/4 by 2. 2 inches is a lot of the measurements on here are going by the 2-inch mark. You're going to want 14 cut at 1 by 2. You're going to want 8 cut at 1.5 by 11. And then 8 at 3/4 by 1.5. I will be including this. I'll put this on the blog. So this is the exact size of the cuts. I do have leftover packaging. I've cut down some different strips. I don't know if I'm going to use all of these, but I do not like naked foam board. So for the sides on the foam board, we will be covering it in strips of packaging, so we don't have that bare foam board on the side. And for the small pieces, like these, we will be wrapping the edges in these. So, because again, naked foam board, I just don't like it. It doesn't take the paint very well. If we don't need to have it, we don't need to. Now, if you're in a hurry and you don't want to bother covering the edges of the foam board, you know what? No one's going to really know unless you tell people, I didn't cover the edges of my foam board. No one will know. So if you don't want to bother with this part of it, don't. It isn't absolutely necessary. It will not impact the integrity of the project. It will stay together entirely fine and beautifully without it. I'm just nitpicky, and so I'm going with this. You don't have to, all right? The biggest thing is have fun, all right? Now, you're going to want some kind for these, you're going to want some dowels. So these are just skewers picked up in the gadget section, in the kitchen section, in the gadget section in any store. So they don't have to be any particular width. They can be whatever width you want, but it's usually going to be like so. But yeah, these are just skewers. They're very inexpensive, and you get a whole, you get a bunch of them in a package. So fancy, right? Now, we will be using some of these thin sticks. They're basically coffee stir sticks. You can find these in most craft stores, craft sections as well. And if you don't want to use these or you can't find these, it's okay. And you do have leftover packaging, use that instead of these. It will not be a game changer, okay? I use these because they're just a little easier for me because this is more cutting, and if I can save some cutting, I'm going to. So, I use for the shelves, I use some square kind of little dowels. Okay, so this is what I've used. However, you can use round dowels. So if you have some rounded ones, you can use those. If you want to use the skewers, cut the skewers to 2 inches and put them there, you can do that. You can cut thin strips of foam board and put them there. So if you can't find these, that is not going to stop your project. Just, you've got other things you can use, and by all means, do that. All right. There are definitely other options. Now, for this middle part here on these, I used this to kind of make part of it, the middle part, stand out a little bit more. And once again, if you have these on hand, some of these, you can find these once again in craft sections and the wood crafting section, like a Hobby Lobby or a Michael's or stuff like that. But if you can also use very slender popsicle sticks if you'd like. And if you don't have these and you don't have access to this, again, just take like 2 or 3 of leftover packaging, make them the width you would like, glue them together, and put those in place. So again, if you don't have one thing that I'm using, there are other things you can use. Now, this is where it gets to be entirely up to what you want. Now, I am going to be using, this is actually, I got this off of Temu, but basically anything that I'm using pearls on here. The reason I'm using pearls on here is because in a lot of the other things I make, I tend to use a pearl trim. So for consistency, I'm going to keep with the pearl. So I ordered this, and I can cut this into 2 rows. It was inexpensive, but they sell like the things of pearl things at once again in craft stores. So this does not. So honestly, looking at them, I might not use them. I don't like them very much. We will see. Now, this is something else that I have. This is the exact one that's going around both centers, but really any kind of trim that you can find that looks decorative, go ahead and use. Once it's painted, and it could be any color, because once it's painted, it won't look like what it originally was. So any kind of trim, anything that you have, you can, anything that looks interesting. And if you don't have anything like that, you can even, like take hot glue, hot glue, whatever you want, and kind of create like upraised designs and paint over it. You can do whatever works for you. And then for the shelves, You can use once again leftover packaging, clear packaging from, boxes, doll boxes or whatever, in my case, doll boxes. Or my daughter was going to make a whole bunch of bookmarks with the Cricut machine, and then she decided she didn't like making bookmarks. But she bought a whole bunch of these, and see, when you take the paper off from both sides, they're clear and they're pretty solid. And and they cut pretty easy too. So you can just cut it down to whatever size you want. And so for today, I'm going to use these because it's a little bit faster than cutting the clear packaging, but definitely you can also cut clear packaging. That's basically, I'm using this because this is leftover stuff I already have, and it's taking up room in my thing. Not a whole lot of room, but when you're a crafter, this can actually, if you get rid of this, it actually makes room for something else that you can stash forever. I mean, keep in case. So, again, it's whatever you want to use. I'm using a pencil because, pencils are obviously good to use in this. A handy dandy X-Acto knife. Now, those of you who follow me know what's coming next, because it is. Now, I have one of these. Mine is a heart. It can be whatever kind of utility knife or whatever you have, but I keep these because, well, this just makes it so much easier for me to always have a fresh one. You just slide it out and you're good to go. When I first started working with utility knives, they scared me. Sharp things have usually made me nervous once upon a long time ago. But they used to make me nervous, and I would actually go and ask my husband for help in changing the knife, the blade, because it intimidated me. Don't laugh. Like I said, I was nervous. And so to keep if any of you are unsure how to change a blade, I would rather show you very quickly how to do this rather than you use a dull blade. A sharp blade will make your cuts cleaner and much more precise. So, and it's also safer. So let's save you from the same stuff I went through. So to change a blade, I'm going to have it go out. There we go. Oops. And this sounds weird, I know, but you're actually going to push in on that button to release the blade. It seems weird, because it seems like it would make the blade stay in firmer, but nope, that releases the blade. And then you take your new blade carefully, and you're going to, while holding down on that button, you're going to carefully put that new blade in. Then you let go of the button, boom. And now you have a nice, fresh blade that's safe. I'm sorry. And we will be I like to use the 3-in-1 glue. Honestly, I don't use hot glue a whole heck of a lot anymore. I just don't. So, yeah. You'll also want some, I use gesso. I like to use some gesso on the back, and then whatever color you want to paint it. I will be painting mine titanium white. Another thing you're going to need, are some lights. Now, for this project, I'm using these lights, and I use 6 of them. And what I like about them is you just turn it one way to turn them on, and the other way to turn them off. And you can get like a package of I think 25 or 50 of these on Amazon. I will definitely try to link that to you so you can get it. And what I did is, see, I just have them in here like this. And I just, okay, hooked it down. And so when I want to turn it on, I just twist because they're staying in place. See, and then I twist the other way and it turns them off. Again, you can do lighting if you want to do lighting any way you want. I was going to use some heavier duty fairy lights, but I was out. That's actually why I kind of went with those initially. I was going to go with fairy lights, and then I thought, okay, maybe some just other lights It was all I had was colored lights for those. So it's like, hmm. And so I looked at my packaging, my wall where I had a bunch of those kinds of lights in it, and I rarely used them. And so I made use of them, and now I love them. Okay, so I encourage you, but you could use any other kind of lighting you want as well. Whatever you have on hand, use. Any lighting will make this look fabulous because you can't really see the lights there. You just see how pretty it looks when it's lit up. Okay? So this is one of those projects I'm showing you that can very, very much be what you want it to be. And I don't know if you could see in here, but because I like the little details, there we go. I did add some little, that's nail art. I added those in there for the tops and the bottoms, just because I like the idea when a person's looking closely at something, you find a nice other interesting little thing, just another little interesting detail. I think I've talked enough. You know what? I think we should get building, right? Let's get to it. All right, the first piece of foam board, you don't need to do a whole lot with. This is going to be your back. Okay, let's get started on this. So from the bottom, I measured up 1 inch all across the way. And then from the top, I measured an inch and a half down all the way across the top. The other thing I did was I measured 10 inches in so I know the halfway point because this is the right middle of the wardrobe. And I know that I'm going to want this to be in the middle. So I folded this. I made, I cut it out and I folded it. And I'm going to find my mark. Okay, see I have this mark right here. And I'm going to find that and make sure that I have it lined up with other marks that I've made. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my first outline here. Now, we're not going to be cutting this one out. This is for the, but I'm drawing this in so I know where things are going to be. And I'm just going to draw my line pretty much all the way down. Mine doesn't go all the way down to the bottom, but I know where it's going from here on. And this way I know where the middle of my wardrobe is now. Okay. This is my middle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my 2x14s and we're going to start gluing some of these bits on. Now, what I like about this glue is it dries fairly quickly, but not as quickly as hot glue. So you have time to fix things. And I really like that. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take this first one and we're going to put it all the way on the edge, all the way. We want it to be flush with the very outer edge. Now I'm going to take one of my 1x2 inch ones, and at 1x2 inches, that means this will be about 2.5 by 5 centimeters. And I'm going to put that, one of them I'm going to put up here, and I'm going to put it over the line that I have drawn here. I'm just going to put it right there and up against the other piece of foam board. And we're going to do the same thing at the bottom. And this one, I'm going to also I'm going to put this under the line as well, right under it. Now I'm going to take another one of these 2x14s, and I'm going to glue that in right over here. So we're going to glue this in over here. And I'm going to put that right up against those. I'm going to take one of these foam board pieces that are 2 at 4 and 4 3/4. I'm going to take one of them. And I'm going to glue this once again up above the line, but right on it. Okay, like so. And we're going to glue the other one down below. We're going to glue up above the line. Take another one of these, and we're going to glue that over here. Now I'm also going to take another one of these 1x2, and I'm going to add this, 2 parts of it. I'm going to add one about here. Going to do another one. Another one, and we're going to kind of follow the same pattern that we just did. So let's put this in. Once again, that goes above the line. And this one is going to go below the line. We are going to take 2 of these, and we want to find out where we want this to go. Hi, sorry to interrupt the video, but I would just like to remind you that if you like what I'm doing and you want to see more content, it really helps if you hit the like button. And I think it's somewhere in here. And there is now a hype button. And if you could hit that, that helps tremendously. And of course, subscribing is always great too. But definitely, yeah, like and hype. That would be awesome. All right, back to the video. My hanger is going to be about 23 centimeters or 9 inches high. All right, so I'm going to measure about 10 inches up on here. And I'm going to measure an inch in because this is 2 inches. So if I measure an inch in, then that makes it, like on the halfway point. I'm just going to put this all in, and I'm going to make a mark, a decent mark. At the 10 inches. If it's 10 inches, how many centimeters is that? About 25 and a half centimeters, ish. And it doesn't have to be exactly this height. Be whichever height you want. I'm just having mine up a little higher. But once again, this is another situation where it could be whatever you want to do. I'm now going to poke a hole through this. This isn't going to be pretty, okay? Many of you are going to watch this and go, oh my goodness, there's so many better ways to do that. And if you know better ways of doing it, I definitely encourage you to do that. But I'm going to do this, okay? I'm going to kind of... This is one of the... I'm going to use kind of a good sized dowel. So this is the dowel that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to kind of now use the dowel, and I'm going to push that through. To cheat, I'm now going to take the other one, Make sure it's even. Take my little pencil dot and do the same thing again. Now, once I've done that part, I am going to finally cut my dowel down, and I think I want it to be, long enough to fit through, but also in here. I want to make sure that it never, ever falls out. So I'm going to have this about this wide. It could be, it doesn't have to be precisely this. This is just the measurement I'm going for. So mine is about 15.5 centimeters, or about a little over 6 inches. I'm going to use one of these to cut my dowel because I'm a wimp. I'm going to take one of the sides with the hole, and we want to make sure that the hole is near the top. So let's glue this down now. And we're going to slide this in right next to these others. There we go. We're going to take another one of these. Make sure you do that above the line. And this one is going to go above this bottom line. Once again, we're going to take two of these because I don't know. All right. Now let's take our other one with the hole. And obviously, once again, you want the hole near the top. I'm going to glue this in place. Now is when we're going to take our handy dandy dowel and we're going to put it through now. There. And see, this side will hold that in. It won't be able to go all the way through, and the other one will hold it in on the other side. So this will always be in place. Yay! Then, right at the one at the bottom, we're going to go below the line. This is what it's like so far. See, not bad. This is your lights will be going down in here. And we'll be putting some shelves in here. Okay, now it's going to be at about this point that you're going to want to figure out the heights of your shelves. How high do you want them to be? Now, I know, as on the other one, I wanted this is going to be my shoe part. Obviously, this is going to be for clothes, and this will be for purses, or, whatever else. So if you're going to make a part for shoes, you want to keep in mind the different heights of the shoes you're going to have in this closet. I obviously like the tall boots, so I definitely want to make sure that they're high enough for those. So let me get the shoes so we can measure them, right? Okay, so this is how I keep my shoes stored. So this is the new series, so I got one of these. This is actually, a floss organizer, and they're like $2 and some odd cents. They're not very expensive. And so so this is how I keep my, because I like to have my shoes separated by series and stuff. I'm kind of anal. All right, so we only need to get out one boot for that. So we know I want one set of shelves to fit this. I'd also like one of the set of shelves to be able to accommodate these. Now the other shoes, I think I could pretty much guess about how high they need to be because they're not very tall. I'm not too fussed on those. And I'm just gonna kind of make a mark for about where the boot would hit. Okay, I want it to be snug inside. That way the shelf will help keep it in place, but not so snug that it causes the plastic to buckle up. So I know I need to keep it where that second mark is. So now I know this is straight. So I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to buck it right up against there. I'm going to draw a line. And then I'm going to take this again. I'm going to bring that edge right over to where that line is. I'm going to draw this line. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to take my boot and I'm going to put it around where this line is. It doesn't have to be exactly on it. These boots, they do tend to stay up pretty well in themselves, so it doesn't need to be as close to the top shelf above it because it'll stand up anyway. And so I think I'm going to need about this much room in between shelves for that. There we go. This is where you're going to want to decide how many more shelves do you want for the boot, for the shallow boots, as opposed to your other things. So I think I want one more shelf. I don't know. I might just stick with it. I think 3 pairs of boots would fit there. But I think I am going to go with just the regular shoes after this. So I like the idea of a little shelf at the bottom, some kind of little thing that you can kind of put in, you know, I just like the idea of a shelf down there. I'm going to give myself some room that way that I don't want it to be down so close where the hangers are going to knock into the plastic. So I think about here. So it'll be kind of a narrow shelf, but that's okay. I keep my purses stored the same way I keep my shoes stored. And once again, I do it by series or type. So these are all the purses from this series so far. So let me get a few different sizes for the purses. So we want one of these. And then probably this one as well. It's a little different height, but let's get that out. Maybe this size out. And I think we're going to stick with about those sizes. I think if we make all the shelves accommodate those sizes, there should be plenty of room. Okay. Now that I have where I want my shelves placed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of these. But you can use whatever will work, but I'm going to cut. I want them to be 2 inches long, and I will cut for me, see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it'll be 10, and 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. I'll be cutting 22 of these at 2 inches. So I have a whole bunch of these cut, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be gluing them into place right below the lines. I'm not going to worry about this, just the lines on both sides. I'm going to do that all the way across. Okay, and it should look something like this. Now, I forgot to mention that if you're going to put craft paper in the back, you should probably do that before you put these in. Okay, so if you're going to use craft paper, put that in before you glue these in. And this would be the point now where you would paint these inside points. You don't need to paint this other stuff because you won't be seeing it, but you will want to paint these. I'm going to start with gesso. I will be doing 2 layers of gesso and then 1 layer of paint. So I'll see you at the end, and I think I'll probably still paint this white as well. All right, see you when I'm done. All right, so we have the inside painted and ready to go. Now we're ready to start building the outside. So we have 3 foam board pieces of foam board at 4 3/4 by 1 1/4 inch, which means they are about 3 centimeters and 12 centimeters, so about 3 by 12. And we're going to glue these down here. We're just going to have it so it's kind of just like so. So what I did here is, as I showed you earlier, I found my middle point and I drew it out. And then I went over 1.5 inches on both sides. And I did 2 more of these, exact same size as this. So 1.5 inches on each side. And you draw them out. All right, so let's get a bunch of glue down on here. I'm going to put this down and just kind of scooch it into all the little areas here. All right, well, I have some of this leftover packaging, and this measures at 1 centimeter by here. 1 centimeter by about 26. What I want to do is I don't like these parts. I don't want these parts showing. So I took this one, and when I put it on, I traced out this part because I wanted to kind of, go neatly over there. And I'm going to do that with 6 pieces. I'm going to cut them all the same. Then we're going to glue these on here, but we're going to have them kind of off to the side like so. Now we're going to take our 1.5 by 11 ones, and we're going to go 2 by 2, and we're going to glue 2 together. So you should have a set. So you should have 4 when you're finished. Okay, now that these are all glued together, I did take some leftover packaging, and what I did was I took this and I measured out so it would be the same width on some leftover packaging, and then I cut out 8 strips, one for each side. So go one, you get the idea. Because we don't want bare foam board. I don't care about the bottom, and I don't care about the very top, but I do care about the parts that we'll be seeing and using. All right, so they should look about like this, right? And now we're going to take these little ones. These are little 3/4 by 1.5. Otherwise, they are 2 centimeter by about to here. And we are going to glue these in, one at the bottom and one at the top on all 4 of these. All right, so we have those parts glued on. The next thing I did was I took this and I measured it again on some leftover packaging. So the pieces will fit at the very top, like so. And I've cut out 4 of those. Okay, and I'm going to glue those onto the top. You don't need to do it to the bottom, just the top. All right, and so it should look about like this. Now, I also don't like these bits of foam board here. I'm not too worried about this one. Well, no, I actually am. So I'm also going to, I cut off some other strips, and these should fit right around these. And I'm going to cover along the sides and this bottom, and then on the bottom, and on this part around the top. I'm not going to put any packaging down on the very bottom. Okay, we're almost finished having to apply packaging. So I have some strips, and these strips are just the width of the foam board. And we don't need to put a lot on, but I just want to cover up this exposed bit of foam board. I don't need to go up in here or here, just around the curve. And we're going to do that for all 3 arches. Okay, so we have that in now. Okay, this is all done. Now let's put these on. We want to make sure that the part that has the packaging part is at the top. and it should look pretty much like this. Okay, so I've cut 3 of these. I did put a copy of this. I will be putting a copy of this on my blog spot. So all you have to do is print it out, so you don't have to try to guess the size or anything. It will be there. And what we're going to do is, remember we have these? That was on purpose. We're going to put these so they're above the arch. And we're going to do that for all 3 arches. All right, I also put leftover packaging around the tops of these. I'm not worried about the bottoms because we'll have something there. And then I cut 16 of these. I took the spears and then I measured them out at 1.5 inches, and I cut 16 of these. And 1.5 inches comes to about here for centimeters. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these at the tops and the bottoms of all of these. All right, it's time to start putting the fun things on now. So first of all, I cut 4 of these, and I cut them long enough to fit snugly, obviously snugly, right? Right in the middle of these. And I'm going to glue one down in the middle on each of these pillars. Now I cut a bunch of the skewers, I think about 20 of them, and these are also the same length as this area in here. And so I'm going to put 1 skewer on each of these right on this middle piece. Okay, and then I'm going to add the rest of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 down on each side. Oops. All right, and it should look somewhat like this. So now I cut 3 of those coffee stir kind of sticks, and I cut them down to 4 3/4 inches, the same as these. And we're going to put one in each of these because I don't like, open foam board. Now, the same size dowel that I use for the clothes, I cut 3 sections of these to go down in between here. And then I have more of these coffee stir sticks, and they're also cut down to the same length, and so we're going to glue these in place. Okay, and now I have some more of the spears. I cut down to the 4 3/4, and I'm going to put these in these parts as well. Look pretty much like that. All we have left is to do these parts, and if you're going to put any decorative touches on here, that would be the time, but all we have left is to dress up these parts. Okay, so I have some trim here, and I have some of this, and mine is plastic. I wouldn't even use this on anything like any clothing or anything. So it's really only good for this kind of thing. And so for this one, I'm going to glue it in right along this edge here. Okay, and this is what it looks like with the trim on. It's almost a pity to paint over it, isn't it? But we need to. But it is pretty. And now I'm going to get out some nail art and put a little bit in each one of these. Okay, so this is the kind of stuff I picked because I use this one somewhat frequently, so it adds some continuity to my own builds. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 coats of this acrylic gesso, and then 1 coat of this satin titanium white. All right, so your closet is probably dry by now, and so this is after the 2 coats of gesso and the 1 coat of paint. And all we have to do now is put in the shelves and the lights. So I think we're going to start with the lights first. And again, I use these lights, and I will definitely try to remember to include the link for these. I did get these off Amazon, and all you have to do is turn it and turn it. And so it's pretty easy. So we're going to install those first. I've marked at the very top where I want the lights to go. And so I'm going to basically cut holes in the top carefully, carefully. So I'll be right back. So what I'm doing is I have a little pair of these scissors, which surprisingly, they're really good. And I got them off of Temu. And all I'm doing is where I've marked the hole is I'm poking the scissor in, and then I'm just kind of smooshing the hole. Now, the hole you're gonna make will be, will be determined by what kind of lights you're using, because you don't have to use just these lights, as discussed earlier. But this is what I'm doing, and it's working actually surprisingly well. I don't know why I hadn't figured that out before this. We won't talk about that. Okay, now that the holes are punched, I'm going to put these in, and I won't even need anything to hold them. They'll stay right in place. Let me show you. All right, and here they all are, and they're in snug enough, and I used this size dowel to finish doing the holes, and if you use a size like this, seems to be the perfect size, but whatever works. But anyway, these don't, I didn't need to attach them to anything else, and they will stay nice and secure. Okay, and here's what the closet looks like with the lights on. But I have these acrylic bookmarks, and I've had them sitting around for forever. So I'm going to use these. Now, each shelf will require 2 of these, but I'm going to cut them down to size to fit across. But whatever you want to use is fine. But I'll try to leave a link for these as well, because actually they do save some time. So be right back. Alright, well that brings us to the end of this video, and I do appreciate you joining me while we got to build this closet for your dolls. I'm hoping that maybe I'll get to see some pictures of what you guys create. I think that could be fun. And yeah, but I really like it. Now, the first one that I showed you guys was my prototype. I mean, it came out really good for a prototype. So in the next video, though, I'm going to turn that part of the closet into some separate kind of wardrobe storage. So hopefully you'll join me for that as well. So now what I did here is I only put the one shelf on here because I kind of like the idea of having a lower shelf that was short. And yeah, I really do. I think it's, for my purposes, it's working. It works quite well. And like I said, I'm just so anxious to see what you guys come up with. Now, if you need help finding something, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm always happy to answer where can I find. Now, if you like this video, please hit like. If you're a subscriber, as I always say, but I always mean it, thank you so much for being a subscriber. My subscribers are, and I keep saying it, but it's still true, the best people in the whole wide world. I can't help it. It just happens to be true. And if you would like to become a subscriber, I have a subscribe button. It's red. It says subscribe. It's somewhere in here. And if you're watching this on the TV, it's somewhere up in here. You just click it and then you're subscribed. And while you're clicking subscribe, hint, go ahead and hit that like button as well. And if you take the time to comment, I will take the time to answer. I love hearing from you guys. It really makes my day. Sharing is caring, and this is a fairly simple build, so maybe you can share this with other people who are wanting to do some kind of Barbie closet for their dolls. And I know there are a lot of different ones out there. And now there's another different one out there. But, you know, go ahead and share this. And gosh, you know, on that note though, I'm going to let you go. And no matter what time of day it is, whether it's morning, noon, or night, I do hope it's fantastic because, yep, you guessed it, you deserve fantastic things. And I'm out of here, so goodbye.